I'm going to be talking about Embrace the Night. And I actually really enjoyed the book. It's something that was kicking around my house for over a decade.
Not kicking around, you had it on some shelves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I keep my books on bookshelves. But anyway, I don't generally bother with fiction. It's a waste of time. So I think it's useful for for everybody to write fiction. And James said something to me, it was early on in our relationship, I think. We were talking about, I don't know, some kind of profession. And somebody with an education or something. And he said something like, well, how long did you go to, study horticulture or do this or do that or whatever? And he said, well, you have this many years of education. And, I'd never really thought about it. Like, he counted all the 12 years of, grade 1 to 12 and then plus that, right? And I'd never really thought about that. You kind of take the 12 years for granted. Like, everyone has it or something. And they don't. Not everyone does. And,
in the world, particularly.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of people in the world who can't even read their own language.
So it's important to keep that in perspective, right? To just not anyway.
Well, I mean, that's a antidote to a certain extent to professionals going around saying, I've got 7 years, like they got a PhD, I got 7 years after grade 12 education, and you've got none. I'm like infinitely, 7 is infinitely more than 0, infinitely more education than you. No. You've got 19 years of education, and someone who's a high school grad has got, how much? Oh, 12. So that's a little bit more than 50%. Now, for some types of that grad education, like if you're going to Ivy League place or something like that, you really have to concentrate just to get in there, much less to get through. But and there are a lot of people who get through high school, who are just slackers and so on and so forth, and don't really learn that much. But
anyway,
that's a different consideration. So
but there's a lot of people who get through the post-secondary buying their tests and buying other people's time to write their
so they're
essays
saying,
for them.
What is it, like 40% of the PhDs in the United States are foreign students? How many of them are getting people to tutor them? And
tutor's really a euphemism
yeah. For people who are, they theoretically go over their essays, edit them, but they really write them. Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a big problem.
But,
and
I mean,
I gotta admit, like I edited someone who was going for a master's in business, an essay. And I had to go with what the person said. They said, this is for an article. Okay. Like I didn't do it for money either. There's no tutoring or anything, and I did it at his request. Can you help me out with this paper? And I'm going, well, like if it's for an article, it's for a good cause and all this sort of stuff. the guy was pretty sharp when it came to knowing the field that he knew. And I'm going to say it was, he knew mathematics well, very well. That wasn't the discipline this was in. And now he's very, very lucky that he ran across me. I'm going to mention, yeah, he's a foreign student. I'm not going to mention his nationality. So his paper had to do with...
you don't have to say anymore. Anyway.
No, well, I'm going to say it had to do with 1, 2, 3, 4 different specialties, and I specialized in all of them. And
Yeah.
that's his specialty,
Yeah,
and none of those were my
Mhm.
specialties.
Mhm.
He's very lucky. Plus, I have a degree in English. So he was very, very lucky that he ran across me, because I was telling him, this isn't the proper wording. And he's saying, yes, it is. And I'm going, no, it's not. And then I said, let's check it up on Wiki. Checks it up, at least or whatever, or in your textbook, let's check it up. And I'd every time I was right. And so the next thing you know, he's telling me, this is a few months later, hey, I got through with my master's. And I'm going, right. That was his thesis that I was working on. And it was a lot of pages. How many pages? It was over 50, and technical kind of stuff. I presume that's the length that you need for a thesis for that sort of stuff.
So that's good. So you got a master's in whatever. Yeah.
I got a master's. I got the equivalent
for somebody
of
else.
an MBA.
Yeah.
A master's in business administration.
But anyway.
So, that's another, I guess I do count that one. I'm at the level of a grad student, and it wasn't the usual slop, because it involved.
But in any case, what I wanted to say is journalism. A lot of people want to study journalism. They want to write. They want to be the next Stephen King, or they want to be whatever, a successful writer. And presumably they like reading, and so they come to this conclusion that, well, I've been reading and I should write. And why not? If you've been reading, you've been studying how to write whatever you've been reading for however long. So, you're putting the work in. Anyway, so journalism. What is a couple of years? And if you've been reading on your own, and you're really paying attention to, how the story is formulated, or your the different stages that the storytelling is going through to, then you're probably going to be able to write something as well as. So honestly, try it out. Start writing your own stories just for fun. I do it. I write stuff. I haven't bothered to put it out into the world, because that might be cruel at this point. But anyway, even though I don't know, sometimes I mostly write just for my mom. She likes reading, and so I'll write something and I'll give it to her to read, and she's like, so you're gonna publish this one now? And I'm like, no, I needs some work or whatever. And she's like, no, it's ready now. But that's my mom. So anyway, I feel like I'm still learning. And what does it matter if it sits around for 20 years? in my house. It can go out 20 years. I don't. What?
I suppose it could even be published posthumously.
Sure. What does it matter? She will outlive me. So she could publish it.
She comes from a long-lived line of people.
Yes.
Not so. It's not the way on the other side.
If
Although
she
your
wants
grandma
to.
on the
I
other
don't-
side lived to be almost 90. It's very impressive.
Yeah, given the troubles she had.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but I was going to talk about this book, and then we got all sidetracked there. So,
Dealing with an important issue, though.
yeah, I suppose. So anyway, I hadn't thought anything of this. The cover actually doesn't appeal to me. I don't know who the cover would appeal to. It's a vampire sort of, I don't know, this witchy sort of vampire or sort of whatever kind of story. And honestly, a lot of the time, I never really got into the vampire stuff as for reading. Like, I liked watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer on TV. I preferred the series to the movie, which I think everyone did. But as much as I totally loved Pee Wee Herman in the movie, but this writer is really skilled. This was not the first story in the series. It's a series sort of thing, and I don't know where it would have started, and I don't know how far along in this. One would guess that this is number 4 or something like that, but I don't know. Anyway, but maybe they're from different sets, because there's 4 books listed by this person, and so maybe they're kind of in 3, and then there's 1, so maybe this is the second in the, I have no idea. Anyway, but there's some great writing in here. The first thing I came across that I thought, wow, that's really something. It's poetic almost. Dishwater Blonde. And I thought, wow, that's great. Because not only does that give you a color for the type of blonde, but it kind of gives you, it tells the reader, well, this is, she's maybe a lower class kind of whatever, right? Without having to put a lot of words into it, you know who you're dealing with. You know the kind of who this character is, how you're supposed to receive them as the reader in the story. And that was, honestly, that's genius. That was great. When I came across that, I was like, whoa. And because I didn't expect anything from this story, this writer, this anything.
Well, I mean, if it's a vampire story, you expect formula, right?
Yeah. But there's some creativity here. The writer is skilled. And really, I mean, that's what every writer should work for, is something like that, the Dishwater Blonde. Like, if you can say something in as few words as possible with as much meaning as you can, then that's pretty powerful. I mean, you're already asking a reader to get through almost 400 pages of your expression, isn't it? Whatever. And that's a bit much. I mean, people have their own lives to live. So if you're writing fiction, it better be worth it. If you're going to put somebody else through it, through you, if you're going to impose yourself, really, I mean, you can say, oh, well, they don't have to read it, and they don't. But, I mean, just keep it at home and don't publish it if it still needs some work.
Yeah. You've read a lot.
Because I've
You've read a lot.
so much in my life. like James was saying, I pretty much go through a book a day. This one I took a little more time on because I'm doing other things. Because frankly, I don't think people should be reading in the summer very much. They should be out hiking. It's nice weather. It's go out and live so you have something to write about. And then maybe come home and write a little bit.
Bicycling, though.
No.
Like you guys cycle, you should set up your own tracks and stuff like that, and stay off of public property. The way most of you guys behave. I know one cyclist is a very nice guy, but
and quadders and stuff like that.
Oh,
they're
you
so
pukes.
Horrible. But
useless. You should not be allowed to quad on anything other than
your own property.
Than your own property, someone else's property.
Or maybe you could pay a fee to somebody who owns a big property could have a quad track or something that they, people pay to go
ruin
rip
the
up
property.
But public
property, no.
No.
Like it should be a felony actually, and you should be like if you're caught with your quad out on the road, like on your truck or something like that, and you aren't using it for work. If you're not on the road, you should be required to post where you're going. If you're having to use it for work or stuff like that, you should be chucked in jail. Because I have seen what you scumbugs have done to public property in some places very short time, less than 10 years, ripped stuff up like peat moss, ripped up slopes and stuff like that, huge gouges in the landscape. You guys are awful.
There's nothing left. It used to be lush, multiple species of plants, and it's just gross now. It's hard-packed ruts that nothing grows in. It's awful. It looks terrible, and it's...
You guys are criminals against the environment.
Yeah. So anyway, if
that's what be.
People who are living in urban environments and don't actually know what's going on, like the awful quadders ripping up the landscape, you should go out and see it.
Oh, man.
Go out there. Go out to public land and hike around and see what's happening.
The first time I saw it,
it makes you sick.
Puked.
Yeah. So, and then you'll come home and you'll have something to write about. So you go out and you hiking. Any kind of physical activity, really, it's going to increase blood flow, right? Your blood's going to be pumping faster. It's going to increase blood flow to your brain, and you're going to be able to think more clearly, and you'll be able to get quality work done, quality thinking work done. So you need both. You need to be active. You need to be thinking. So do both in the summer. Active writing. Active writing. And then in the winter months, when you don't want to be as active or cannot be because you live in Canada, well, there's a good book to read. I really enjoyed that one. And it's fiction, so I don't bother with fiction very much. So for me to say that's a good fiction book, it's worth reading. If you like vampire stuff at all, if you don't, whatever. I still enjoyed it.
One thing that makes me laugh about fiction is they say 10% of it gets published. What's the level of the stuff that doesn't get published?
Such crap.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then that if you're reading absolute garbage and you say, "Wow, I really should try to get published because my stuff is as good as this." Well, you don't want to be as good as that. You want to be better, right?
Way better.
So you don't want to put more crap out for people to waste their time with. I mean, the writer wasting their time writing some crap. Well, that's whatever. But just because you've done something, you've put the work in, that's maybe practice for you or something. It doesn't mean you should get paid for it. So Just because you've written it and
That
you've
applies
written
to all
a
the
work
arts.
of crap, don't expect to make money off of it.
That applies to all the arts. Like,
Yeah.
people who do visual arts and expect to get paid for it, I don't have much respect.
No. You've decided to fund your own art project. And it didn't work out so well. You know, you're not the next Stephen King or whatever. Don't publish it. Please don't. In Canada, there are all sorts of ways for people to get grants for doing whatever art, and it's
Canada
agree
Council
with
grants.
it.
In the United
There's
States,
so
they have
much garbage.
national endowment things. I presume that's federal government. There's state things. It's not just in Canada. There's all sorts of ways governments have of wasting money.
Yeah. And
that's inappropriate when there are people who are poor.
Yes, because everybody should be doing art, and not everybody is going to get those grants. So it's a way for the government to favor some people and not others, and it's not right. So
what
because they're
favoring
doing it with public funds.
It's a class thing. They're favoring the idle, whatever. And some of them aren't necessarily rich, but they're rich by comparison to their contribution to society. There's no way a novelist's contribution can equal the contribution of someone who swabs out toilets. I'm sorry. Swabbing out toilets have to get done every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you really want to make a contribution, want to be part of the intelligentsia, get into the sciences. Discover a cure for COVID or for cancer.
Well,
get motivated.
You know, there's a lot of talk lately about some people have figured out, migrant workers aren't making minimum wage or whatever. Well, why are migrant workers from other places still being permitted to be crossing borders? There should be no butts across borders. Vaccination is not the key to get through this. And so as long as this pandemic is going, there needs to be no butts across borders. And then, there's a lot of talk about how the youth of today, they're coming into the workforce, there's no jobs available.
Wow, that's interesting.
There's the jobs that the migrant workers are doing are available. Mm-hmm. Perhaps what we need to do is pay people minimum wage to do farm labor.
Mm-hmm. Well,
or better than minimum wage, So rather than getting migrant workers in to do the stuff. So people are now becoming aware of the fact that some people are making less than minimum wage in our society, or on the outskirts of our society. And without, it had been done for a long time without a lot of people knowing about it. Well, now, and so what's going to change? I mean, some people are saying, we'll give all the migrant workers citizenship. Well, that doesn't work.
Well, I mean, you don't know
That's
who
the
you're
dumbest thing in the world.
In.
There's
you
not
actually share your values?
There's not enough work for everybody who's already here, because we're hearing on the radios and whatever, there's not enough jobs for all the young people coming out of university and whatever. And it's ridiculous. You can't bring more people in when there's no jobs for them. So perhaps give people minimum wage to do the work, or at least minimum wage, and then take away the Canada Council grants and stuff like that, and
please.
All right, well, you want to be an artist? Live. Go out and live. So you have something to write about. And I'm sure James would have liked to be able to sit around and have somebody pay his way to whatever. But
to write poetry. I mean, I used to. Wow. I tried to rhyme every syllable.
I
worked at it. I'd
and I guess
sweat over it. and no blood and
Who wants to?
no tears, well, I'd sweat over it. I enjoyed it. No tortured artist here. But I wasn't asked, much less demanding. People pay my wages. And people would say, oh, we've got to have support for symphony orchestras. If people don't want to listen to symphony orchestras live, you can get all sorts of stuff now, I presume, on over the internet and stuff like that. Recordings from way back when. If they don't want to hear it live, well, there's no way it should be funded. Like, who's that for? Like, for poor people? Poor people. Let's go and see the symphony orchestra. Yeah, no, it's for rich people. It's a reverse taxation. That's
Do
all
you
it
want
is.
this?
Sure. Yeah, please. Reverse taxation. And so much of this Canada Council stuff is reverse taxation. Like, poor people. I'm going to go out and buy dandelion. Is that thing out of Calgary? That journal?
I don't know. I had a bunch of them kicking around,
Yeah.
and
Anyway,
I was just going to throw them out.
An arts journal.
Well,
I like to read it because
James
you just look at it and you go, man, oh man. Experimental poetry, failed experiments, but that's good. Yeah, experimental poetry. You know, like, it's what I say about poetry. Science. What percentage of experiments fail? 99%. What percentage of experiments fail with experimental poetry and experimental art? 1%. Yeah, and so you publish this stuff, your failed experiments.
Yeah, it'd be...
You know, like, I'm experimental. Yeah, you are, you stupid. And it's done on public funds. So, yeah, you can imagine poor people. I'm going to go down and buy that Dandelion magazine. Or Fiddlehead. Is that the thing down from University of New Brunswick? I got to go out and buy that. You know, like, we'll have to scrimp on bread this month. Because, man, oh, man, I've just got to get hold of that stuff. That's what keeps me going. No. You know, when that stuff gets subsidized by the government, it's reverse taxation. It's rich people are benefiting from it.
Yeah,
and you're getting that from a guy who's got the education.
You don't have the dishwater blondes going through buying the Dandelion magazine.
No.
No.
So you're getting that from someone who's got the education. Hey, you know, like the deal is, I don't have a PhD, but you get, come on, you PhDs, we're going to compare. We're going to look at the languages that you've studied, 2 of them, and the languages that I've studied at university, more than twice that, more than 10 times that, is more than 2 dozen. And that's not all the languages I've studied. We're going to go up and we're going to see who really knows stuff. But I'm also a union guy. I worked swabbing toilets, doing landscaping, truck driving, machine operating, and all that stuff. Meanwhile, getting a university education. I didn't get a university education to rip people off by sitting in some ivory tower doing nothing.
We're getting a little bit of rain.
A little bit of rain.
There we go.
Exactly right. But it's not going to be bad.
No.